Thank you, folks, for watching. This is Between Takes, my TV show, WeHo in West Hollywood.
Hi, can you hear me?
Richard, hello.
We can't see him.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can.
Well, welcome. With all the talking we've been doing, I'm so glad that today we're finally doing the show. Okay.
Oh, good. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
We can't see him.
Okay. Between Takes. Okay.
Richard, we can't see your face.
Yeah.
Can you put your video on?
How's that?
Yes.
Hey.
There we
Hi.
go.
Good. He looks like a friend. He looks like Jack a little bit. Anyhow, welcome to Between Takes, WeHo West Hollywood show. It's a pleasure. And we have so much to talk about. Let's get going, okay?
Okay, let me see if you can see some Bigfoot stuff here. Got the Bigfoot lamp.
Oh, I'm so excited about it, really. I've been waiting for this a long time. First of all, people say to me, Bigfoot, what is Bigfoot? I mean, I never heard that name before in Sasquatch. Why did they name this hairy 8-foot creature, right?
Yeah.
Bigfoot.
Well, the first time they saw him, or actually not saw him, but the first kind of modern recorded encounter was in the 1950s in Northern California in the mountains. And they found giant impressions of a large mammalian walking biped in the mud. And a local newspaper wrote about these series of mysterious encounters. I believe it was 1958, the Humboldt Times. And they named it Bigfoot.
Okay.
And ran some photos. And the legend.
Okay, go ahead. How about Sasquatch? Did that come from the Indians there or what? That other name?
Yes, that is an older name, and that I believe is an Indian name. It's not a local Indian name though. I know they use it a lot in Canada.
Okay. And this creature, you're up anyhow. Richard is a fabulous marketing ranger in the Redwoods, correct, Richard?
That is, I am chief marketing ranger for what's called redwoodcoastparks.com. And it's a group of biologists, naturalists, conservationists, outdoor recreationalists, and redwood enthusiasts that help promote the responsible use of Redwood National Park and also the state parks around there that also have lots of really good redwoods too, like Prairie Creek Redwood State Park.
Beautiful area, the most gorgeous and the oldest trees ever in the redwoods, right?
They are among the oldest. They are the tallest. They're the world's tallest. There's one in Redwood National Park that's 380 feet tall.
Oh my God.
If you were around, if you were at the top of the Statue of Liberty in the torch, you'd have to look up 6 more stories.
And that's why Bigfoot loves I think this creature loves dense forests, right? Thick, right? You think so?
I think you are correct, Laraine. It's similar habitat to bear habitat. And we also have very dense bear concentrations up here too. We have the largest stretches of undisturbed forests in the Pacific, in California. And among those are the redwoods, and there's also Sitka spruce, and lots of Douglas fir. And among the breaks and the meadows and prairies and so forth, there's lots of wild berries and things. It's been pointed out that Bigfoot, if they have to eat too, and they're going to eat things that's similar to what bear eat, and we have lots of bears. So if you have lots of bears, you're going to perhaps attract.
So they're not only plant eaters then.
I would presume they are omnivores. I'm not that well versed in that particular area of Bigfootology though.
Okay. Now, when or why did you become so interested in Bigfoot? What made you get into this history of this creature, which started years and years and years ago? This has been going on for ages all over the world too, right?
That's correct. As you know, there's similar accounts on most continents. Asia has the Yeti. You also hear the abominable snowman is another phrase used. And even here, there have been Indian legends dating back hundreds of years or longer of a large, primate biped, and they call him Oma, is the local Indian name. I actually came interested in it from two angles. One is I am an outdoor enthusiast, actually a former working park ranger at some national parks in California. So I've always loved the outdoors, and also from a historical perspective. Living here, I live in Humboldt County, and this is ground zero of the modern Bigfoot phenomenon. That's where the Bigfoot phrase was.
I know everything takes place and everything. Would you describe this creature to us, please?
Well, there have been lots of different accounts, but some similarities include the following: very tall, everywhere from 7 to 8 to 9 feet, obviously large feet. And two other characteristics that people have experienced is one is a very, very foul stench. In the South, they refer to Bigfoot as the skunk ape. And also a very, very loud and high pitched screeching.
Yeah, I was going to ask you his sound, what it would be like.
I have not heard it, but I have heard tapes of it.
Uh-huh.
If you go to kingbigfoot.com, which is a website that I help manage, some of it is the social phenomena of Bigfoot. There's just the pop culture references where you can turn yourself into what's called the Patterson-Gimlin Bigfoot.
Oh, yes, we're going to talk about that too, that film and everything. I want to go, but I want to get more description so that people would know it's very hairy. It has 5 fingers, right?
Yes. It seems to be some sort of missing link to our early hominids.
Okay. And the feet, the toes look like a man's foot, except for it's gigantic. You know?
Yes, and they're supposed to have very large brows, large head brows.
Uh-huh.
And
are you afraid of this creature? Did you ever experience, honestly, any fear when you were out there in the woodlands? Was anyone hurt? How do they feel about this creature running loose someplace and nobody knows?
I think when I've been out, I've actually been near the site, the original Patterson-Gimlin film site. I didn't feel any fear or anyone watching us. And I have talked to people that have had encounters where they've sensed a Bigfoot nearby, and they've sensed, a sense of extreme alertness and uncomfortableness, but I haven't heard anyone mention a sense of extreme fear. And in fact, most accounts, it seems like Bigfoot is a neutral player, if you will. I mean, they're having the occasional stories of Bigfoot causing some mayhem, but I would say the vast majority of accounts have been from neutral to positive.
Okay, now let's talk about the Patterson-Gimlin film, the short film that was done back in when, 1967 or 50? When was that done? I know it was years ago.
That was 67. And it's a 16 millimeter grainy film shot by Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin. And they were professional Bigfoot hunters. Well, I wouldn't say professional, I'll say amateur, because they hadn't really made any money.
Uh-huh.
But one of them was a real skeptic, Bob Gimlin, and Roger Patterson was a believer. And they had been out on their horses in a remote area of Six Rivers National Forest near Willow Creek.
Okay.
And when they had the very last bit of film, they stumbled upon an actual, what they said, Bigfoot walking across a clearing in an area called Bluff Creek. And it is the world's second most viewed amateur film. It's after the Zapruder film of John F. Kennedy. And it's pretty phenomenal if you look at it. It's considered the holy grail of evidence. Some people look at it and say, that's just a guy in a gorilla suit. Pardon me.
Well, I mean, there's so many hoaxes, but the realism, but I read about that, and they investigated that tape. It was all legit. It was the original tape. No one fooled around with it, nothing at all. It had credibility, right?
Yes, and two things that really stuck out for me that made me look at it more seriously were this. One is the gentleman that was a special effects coordinator for Planet of the Apes, the original movie series back back in, they'll say, the 70s. He looked at this and he said, there's no way that Hollywood could have created a special effect. This just wasn't possible at the time. And number two is some of the details that people point out of the walking creature. And that is, one is the flex of the calf muscle. It flexes up and down as it walks. And so that sort of lends credence to it not being a costume. Number two is, if you watch how it walks.
Excuse me, Richard, can I ask you something? What you just said, could an ape have that type of muscle going on like that, or a gorilla?
I mean, I presume so. Insofar, it's you know, it's evidence of a very strong primate-like calf muscle.
Okay, all right, okay. And what I wanted to ask you also, how about, I guess the children must be fascinated with this creature in your area and all. Do they ever go camping? Are they afraid to go camping out?
No, they're not. They're not afraid. We are out in the woods quite a bit, and Bigfoot comes up. But mostly, if people are looking for anything to be afraid of or concerned about, I wouldn't necessarily say afraid. It's black bears, which we see pretty regularly, actually, but they're pretty easy to scare off.
Okay, I want to ask you that story about the barrels that one night. The noise in the air and someone lifted the barrels. Remember that? Could you tell that?
Sure. Now, you probably know that the Amazon is a great expanse, and they were trying to build a major road through it, and in which case they were disturbing an ecosystem that had actually never been disturbed. But we had a similar thing up here in eastern Humboldt County. It's along a lot of sacred Indian lands between the town of Orleans and a little tiny town called Gasky. They were building what was called the Go Road, the G for Gasky and the O for Orleans. And it was going through, this was in the 50s. And the construction crews were going through areas that had never been disturbed ever, really, by modern civilization. And one of the crews was starting to have some really strange things happen to the equipment. They were finding it being monkey wrenched, so to speak, and large barrels that weighed thousands of pounds, someone or something, and picked them up and thrown them as if they were toys.
Oh my God.
And this was also around the same time they were finding the footprints as well.
Ah, that's when everything came into being and everything. Oh my goodness. I want to ask you, I also, you have 4 children, right? You said?
Yeah.
4, okay. And the youngest is what, 5 or 6? What's the youngest?
Youngest is 5. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What does he think of his father's work and getting into Bigfoot? And your wife especially, what does she feel about it?
Let's just say she's not as enthusiastic as I am. But my son he's sometimes a skeptic, the 10-year-old. The 5-year-old's still neutral, but the 10-year-old occasionally will say, I don't believe in Bigfoot. And I'll say, well, you know what? Don't tell him that if you see him. And
isn't that one of them saw that short film we were just talking about, the Patterson Gimlet, and then he started Gimlet, and then he started to believe in that.
You know, he actually met Bob Gimlin, one of the guys that made the film, and he said that really increased his level of believability. And one reason why was Bob Gimlin was at the time a skeptic himself, and Roger Gimlin, he was actually serving as kind of the security guard for Roger Patterson. Bob Gimlin had a loaded shotgun with him because they didn't know what to make of the creature when they encountered it. And Bob Gimlin pointed out, I was not in any sense of I was not in on this because I had a loaded shotgun and I was directed to shoot if there were problems. And if that were Roger Patterson's friend in a Bigfoot suit, he'd probably be really upset knowing that I might be taking some shots at him with some buckshot.
Yeah, I mean, that would be kind of difficult because no one has been able to capture this creature that's been existing for years and years and years. And do you think he's sort of afraid of getting close, or maybe the people scare him away? Because it seems like he's running all the time. If he sees somebody, to him, we're creatures too, that it goes the other way. Do you think he might be frightened?
I'm going to guess that there's a whole range of reactions that Bigfoot has. This is just, pure hypothesis.
Right.
One is in some cases, like you're saying, fear.
It could be.
And probably because that particular Bigfoot or Bigfoot family has experienced negative impact interactions with humans. Some of them might be more curious, more tame, not tame, but more accustomed to how to interact near humans without them detecting them. And I would give the example of mountain lions. They can get very close to humans, very close, without them even knowing that they're there, being tracked by them. And, if Bigfoot's a real sentient being that can travel very quickly and quietly, who's to say they don't get very close to us? We just don't know it. I mean, that's speculation, of course.
Okay. I know when they did that film, I wonder when he runs, does he make a lot of noise? I know he's big and he's heavy, but I wonder if he's kind of light-footed when he runs. He seems to be very light-footed.
That has actually been discussed as a reason to give some credits to that film, the Patterson-Gimlin film, because the subject of that film is walking at a very fast clip and never once looks down. It is walking very comfortably, and that was not a very easy area to walk. It was full of lots of log jams, broken logs and rocks, and very, very uneven terrain right there. It was walking very quickly,
right,
and very, very easily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But can I see what you have behind you on the side? You said you have the footprint.
Yeah. I have just a Bigfoot lamp right here. You can see it there.
Oh, I see that. Oh, yes, because in your area, they have parades. Everything's Bigfoot. They have restaurants called Bigfoot. I love that lamp. Love that. And it's very festive, and they make it festive.
Yes, it is usually every Labor Day weekend, the last weekend of August or the first weekend of September. It was canceled this year because of COVID, but
Right.
It's called Bigfoot Days, and it's in the town of Willow Creek. And that's about an hour east of Eureka on Highway 299.
Okay, and that's where Bigfoot has been spotted, in that area mostly?
Yeah, that's sort of considered the Bigfoot capital of California. That's the area where there have been the most sightings. There have been 60 or 80 confirmed sightings, according to what's called the Bigfoot Research Field Organization.
Uh-huh.
And at the festival, usually about 4 or 5 Bigfoot show up, but I don't think those are the real ones.
If someone said to you, listen, I know what you do. I mean, that's ridiculous. There's no such thing as this creature, Bigfoot, you call Sasquatch. What answer would you give to that person?
Well, I would say it's a good idea to be skeptical, but skepticism, to be true, should also include the possibility of a reality that's different than what your initial hypothesis is. And by that, I mean, there have been plenty of cases where ancient-like creatures thought to be long dead actually were shown to still exist. One would be, I forget the name of that fish, like the colossant fish, a very large, very ugly fish. It was thought to have died out 10 million years ago based on the fossil record. And yet a South African fisherman caught one in the 1950s. And I think since then there have been a few additional specimens caught.
Right.
Also, the giant squid was considered a mythology.
I have seen that, yes. Yeah, that's unreal.
The mountain gorilla in Africa was not known to Western science until the 1950s. Before that, it was just considered a legend.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few other examples. Interestingly enough, Lorraine, one example would be a tree. We have redwoods here. We have the world's tallest trees, the redwoods, the coast redwoods.
Right. Uh-huh.
And then we also have the world's most massive trees, the sequoias, their cousins, which are in the state of Sierra Nevadas. Well, in the 1950s, scientists in China found the dawn redwood, a third cousin, a third type of the redwood tree that was thought to have died off in the dinosaur age. And here they stumbled across essentially a living fossil and found whole forests of them.
Yeah, and I saw pictures of the trees forming different, it looks like creatures, animals, and things. It's kind of eerie when you look at the trees. Really strange.
Yeah,
Really
you're
strange.
right. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. But, like I said, this is a story. And I'm so glad I got a hold of you because I've been trying to do this at least a couple of years. You talk to different people or they don't want to talk to you and I can't be bothered with it. But now, especially, I said to my family, Halloween time. Isn't this a good thing to think of? Hey, there's a creature out there. It's Halloween time. But this creature may be in existence. Like you said, seeing is believing. And don't question people. But something? Thousands of people can't be crazy that saw this creature. There has to be some believability in it. This is the way I feel.
I agree. And I haven't experienced Bigfoot, but I've talked to a number of people that have, and these are people that have no agenda. They're not trying to promote something, a hat or a T-shirt, and they're of sound mind and sound body, and they're kind of embarrassed that they've had these experiences. But they've more than a few people have described all sorts of encounters in the area, including someone that was on one of those construction crews I mentioned earlier.
Right, that you
in the
told that
50s.
on stories and everything. But you know what I say? Isn't nature wonderful
Yes,
when you think about it?
absolutely.
There's so many things that are unknown. And I think that we should keep an open mind and we learn each day. And this is what makes life so exciting and interesting. And I respect people's feelings and I say respect mine, but I always keep my focus right ahead. And like I said, if somebody tells me something, I listen closely and then I make my own decisions at it. Okay. What do you handle special groups that go out like families with your marketing into the redwoods
I do quite a bit into the redwoods, and occasionally I go into Bigfoot country with travel writers or science writers.
like a safari?
But if they want to do some heavy lifting, I send them to a group called the Bluff Creek Research Project.
Uh-huh.
And they go to the original Patterson-Gimlin film site a lot and help keep the trails maintained. They have nature webcams out there that they use to track animals and possibly Bigfoot someday, perhaps. They found something actually almost as rare as a Bigfoot. They found what's called a Humboldt fisher.
What is that? What did they find? What did you say? A humble what?
It's called a Humboldt fisher. It's a very rare weasel that some weren't even quite sure was still in existence in the wild. And they found one just trotting along on the webcam. It was probably more rare than a Bigfoot sighting up around here.
Oh my goodness. You know what I'm thinking now? Like with your youngsters in school, what a story, an essay, if one had to do on Bigfoot. Did any of your children have to do anything in school on Bigfoot at all?
No, but my
teachers, did they question your youngsters?
I'll have to talk to their teacher about that. They're homeschooled, so I have to ask my wife to see if she can work that into the curriculum. This isn't an exact answer, but I have worked at a lot of travel shows with the travel public, and a lot of people have a lot of interest that when they hear that I'm from Humboldt County, about the Bigfoot trails and so forth. And my now teenager, she had to learn up pretty quick on Bigfoot lore, Bigfoot cryptology, and the Bigfoot history of Humboldt County.
Okay. Like I said, you're a retired park ranger, okay? And how long in the span before you came into the marketing end of it, which expanded more for Bigfoot and everything? How many years was that? So did you put like 20, 25 years into that area?
No, I was a seasonal park ranger for a few years in my 20s at at a Sequoia. I'm sorry, at Yosemite National Park and Death Valley National Park. But here I've been working in outdoor recreation promotion for about 15 years here in Humboldt County, and in that position, I've worked very closely with park rangers at Redwood National Park. And I've done many extensive hikes with them. And I've also been a science writer too, a science and nature writer for various news outlets, including CNN.com. So I've always had a real interest in the scientific side of cryptozoology and the redwood too. So I've worked a lot with the park rangers out there.
Yeah, that's a very extensive background. But it's nice because you're outdoors and you're breathing that fresh air at that time. Anyhow, because no pandemic and everything. And that led you to the story and Bigfoot. And who started Bigfoot in your area, actually? Who started the news about Bigfoot in your area? Who do you think?
It was that in the 1958, the Humboldt Times ran a story about the encounters in the woods that we had talked about. And I can't remember the editor's name. I think it was Gonzoli, and they wrote a series of articles that got picked up across the world, and they used the phrase Bigfoot. That's how it caught on.
Okay. Do you think Bigfoot? I think in my feeling that Bigfoot might have derived from cavemen, maybe. What do you think? Millions of
possibly, or Neanderthals, some remnant Neanderthal offshoot or some related offshoot of the Neanderthals.
Right, between the human and the creature, like the combination. Of course, my mind, I wander off so many times because I find it so fascinating and everything. So what would you tell people that want to come in that area, what to expect and how to get in touch with you?
Well, if they're interested first and foremost in Bigfoot, a good place to start would be kingbigfoot.com, which also includes a recent sighting, believe it or not, in the Eureka area of our community park. I live in the town of Eureka. And also Willow Creek. The town of Willow Creek is sort of a good sort of home base to do Bigfoot exploring. As you mentioned, there's the Bigfoot Motel, Bigfoot Restaurant, Bigfoot Days, and also the real deal is the Six Rivers National Forest, where a lot of the sightings have taken place, which is the surrounding mountains. And that's 1 million acres, 1 million acres of land.
How many? 1 million acres?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Amazing, really amazing. Anyhow.
And the rivers there are considered Bigfoot highways because they run through most of the year, unlike a lot of California rivers which run dry. Most or all of the six run very have high water volumes throughout the year. And there are natural passageways also to the coast. So some of them you could conceivably use those as highways to get down for seasonal diets and following deer patterns and so forth, if they eat deer or whatnot, or else coastal berries. They can get to and from the coast very easily along the river corridors.
I want to ask you something. Suppose one night you went to your back door, you opened up, and there was Bigfoot in your yard in the back. What would you do and you're both staring at each other like. Think about that for a second. How scary that would be. Would you be impulsive to move? What do you think would happen in something like that?
Well, I imagine, Laraine, if a Bigfoot were at my back door, probably a little hungry or thirsty, I'd share whatever he or she wanted from my fridge or my stovetop or my beer cabinet.
You could just say, welcome home.
Yeah.
Anytime, Bigfoot, we love you. That's it. And come back again. Richard, you are just fascinating. And you told us so much about Bigfoot. And we want to learn more. And maybe we could do this again sometime as we're experiencing history of Bigfoot. How does that sound?
That sounds great. And Laraine, I'm so grateful of your interest and your audience's interest. And again, if you or any of them would like to know more, they can find out at either kingbigfoot.com, or they can just go to Willow Creek and start asking around, and people will point them in the right direction.
Okay, that's what I like to hear. Thank you for joining us for Between Takes, WeHo West Hollywood. Loved having you on, Richard. Take care, and we'll be seeing you again, okay?
Okay, thank you, Laraine.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Richard. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.